You know that feeling when you're staring at a problem and there's just so much information, you have no idea where to even start? Well, today we're going to unlock a really simple but incredibly powerful secret weapon to cut right through all that confusion. Okay, so picture this. You have three friends, three different careers, and three languages they're all studying. But all the info is jumbled up in these weird cryptic clues. It just feels like a total tangled mess, right? Yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that just makes your brain, well, freeze. But what if I told you the solution is actually as simple as just drawing a box? Yep, that's our secret weapon, making an organized list or a chart. This whole method is about taking all that scattered info, giving it some structure, and turning a totally confusing puzzle into a really clear path to the answer. All right, so let's put this technique to the test. We're going to dive into our first model problem, and for that, we need to meet our three friends, Jane, Rose, and Phyllis. Okay, so here's the setup. We've got our three friends. We also know they're each studying one of three languages, Italian, French, or Spanish, and they're each aiming for a different career, artist, doctor, or lawyer. Simple enough, right? Our goal is to figure out who's who, match each person to their language and their career. So first things first, we need to build our tool. This super simple chart gives us a neat little slot for every single piece of information we need to find. Think of it like our blank canvas. Right now, it's totally empty, but trust me, we are about to change that by digging into the clues. Okay, here's the strategy. You always want to start with the most solid, definite piece of information you can find. And clue number 2, it's perfect. It tells us two things about Jane right off the bat. She studies French, and she is not going to be the artist. Let's lock in that first concrete fact, her language. And just like that, boom, we've got our first piece of the puzzle locked in. We can confidently slap French right into Jane's language box. Now, this is actually a huge step because it completely removes one language from the pool for the other two friends. All right, let's see what the next clue has for us. Now, this next clue is really interesting because it's what we call negative information. It tells us what Phyllis doesn't do. And you know what? Sometimes that is just as powerful as knowing what somebody does do. Okay, let's think this through. This is where it gets cool. We know Jane studies French. We now know Phyllis does not study Italian. Well, since there are only three languages in the mix, that means Rose has to be the one studying Italian. And then, by process of elimination, that just leaves Spanish for Phyllis. See how that worked? We've just solved the entire language row. Awesome. All right, let's take a look at clue number 3. Now, this one is fantastic. It's a game changer, really, because it creates a direct link between something we already know, a language, and something new, a career. And this is where the power of the chart really shines. Since we just figured out that Phyllis is our Spanish speaker, this clue tells us she also has to be the doctor. Boom! We can slot doctor right into Phyllis's career box. And just like that, we only have 2 careers left to figure out. Okay, time for our last big clue. It says, the girl who studies Italian does not plan to be a lawyer. So, who studies Italian? Let's just take a quick peek at our chart. Ah, it's Rose. So what this clue is really telling us is that Rose is not the lawyer. All right, let's put all the pieces together for the final reveal. We know Phyllis is the doctor. We know Rose, our Italian speaker, is not the lawyer. So think about it. The only 2 careers left are artist and lawyer. If Rose isn't the lawyer, she has to be the artist, which leaves just one person, Jane, and one career left, the lawyer. And there it is. Our chart is complete. That problem that seemed so impossibly tangled a few minutes ago, solved. Cleanly, logically, all done. But hey, this technique isn't just for finding that one single correct answer. It's also an amazing tool for when you need to find every possible answer. So let's switch gears and look at a totally different kind of challenge, a combination problem. So what's the difference here? Well, that logic puzzle we just solved was all about deduction, right? We used clues to cross things off the list until only one answer was left. Combination problems are a bit different. Here, the goal is to be super systematic and create an organized list so we are 100% sure we found every single possible combination without missing a single one. So here's our new problem. Magda needs exactly 50 cents for a machine. She's got nickels, dimes, and quarters in her pocket. Now, the question isn't just for one way to make 50 cents. It's how many different ways are there in total. If we just start guessing, we're almost guaranteed to miss some. To avoid that kind of chaos, we need a system. And the best way to do this is to start with the coin that has the highest value, in this case, quarters, and build our entire list around that. We're going to start with the maximum number of quarters she could use, and then systematically work our way down to 0, filling in the leftover amount with dimes and nickels. This organized approach, that's the whole key. And check this out. This is the result of that system. Look at that beautiful, organized list. We start right at the top with the most quarters you can use. 2 of them, and that gets us to 50 cents all by itself. Easy. Then we drop down to just 1 quarter. That leaves 25 cents to make, and as you can see, there are 3 different ways to do that with dimes and nickels. And finally, we get to the case with 0 quarters and just list out every single way to make 50 cents with only dimes and nickels, starting with 5 dimes and working our way down. See? Nothing is left to chance. Not a single combination is missed. So, because we followed our systematic list, we can say with absolute confidence what the answer is. There are exactly 10 different ways for Magda to make 50 cents with those coins. No guesswork, just a clear, solid answer. Okay, so we've cracked a logic puzzle, we've solved a combination problem, but this is about way more than just fun brain teasers. What we're really talking about here is a fundamental skill for just thinking clearly. You know, the real power of making a list or a chart is that it takes a complete mess and makes it crystal clear. It forces you to get organized, and that dramatically cuts down on mistakes. Instead of trying to juggle a dozen different facts in your head, you lay them all out on paper. That frees up your mental energy to actually solve the problem. And this works for everything. I'm talking about planning a big project at work, figuring out a complicated vacation schedule, you name it. So the next time you feel totally overwhelmed by some confusing situation, don't just stare into the chaos. Grab a piece of paper, draw a few lines, and start bringing some order to all that information. You'd be amazed at how quickly the path forward can suddenly become clear. So think about it. What messy problem in your life could you tackle right now with just a simple chart?